Production and factory settings bring their own set of hurdles for wireless connections. Harsh conditions, both indoors and out, create a daunting task for engineers to work through. Now let me tell you, those engineers ain't looking to back down from a challenge like this, no sir. This here's where we gather round to tackle them hurdles, swap thoughts, and lend a hand. Welcome to the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop with your hosts, Scott and Jeremy.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop. My name is Scott McNeil. Today with me, I've got my partner in wireless crime, Jeremy Baker. Jeremy, say hello, buddy.
Hello, I'm fresh from the tire repair store, so I'm in a great mood.
You know what? It's not Monday, so you can't have a case of the Mondays,
No,
right?
it's a week full of Mondays.
It's a week full of Mondays. Well, that's bad mojo, brother.
No, it's all good now.
We've got some really great conversation coming up this go round. We have Andy McFarland from Morse Micro, and we have Kelly Peralta from Gateworks. And these guys are doing amazing things in the world of HaLow. But right now, let's get some housekeeping taken care of real quick. First up, Jeremy, you still got those 3D printer plans out there in the universe?
Yes, I haven't put it on Printables yet, so you can yell at me if you'd like to see it there, but it is on Thingiverse.
All right, so if you're looking for it and you can't find it anywhere else, then just send your hate mail to jeremy@industrialwifishop.com. We have some upcoming WICO dates. In Washington, D.C. on November 6th, we're going to have another WICO gathering up in D.C. That should be a good one. I know the last ones were a big hit. The first ever WICO gathering in Ireland is going to be happening on November 10th in Dublin, Ireland. That's pretty awesome. And then this is the name I can't pronounce. Can any of you guys Utrecht, or yeah, I don't know. I completely butchered it last time, but it's in the Netherlands. It's on November 19th. So if you can pronounce that, more power to you. I am English only as a speaker, so it comes that does not come easy to me.
We're geo-locked in our pronunciation capabilities.
Correct. Now I could completely butcher it if you want me to, but that's I don't want to get anybody mad at me. Upcoming in early 2026, we have WLPC Phoenix. That's the big thing for all us wireless nerds and stuff. That is the main conference is in February, the 17th through the 19th, with boot camps the 14th through the 16th, just preceding the main conference. Voting for presentations has opened. And speaking of presentations, Jeremy, you have submitted for several presentations for WLPC Phoenix this coming up year, correct, sir?
Yeah, I put a weekly reminder up when right before they opened, and then I kept hitting snooze on it, and thankfully Keith was very nice, and I got them in under the wire. So I've proposed to do common industrial deployments for complicated WLANs. So think like crane mobile applications, just kind of some of the things. I did want to say Wi-Fi where your antennas melt, but that didn't really sound as to the point. And then the other option is, and you can vote for both if you'd like, please and thank you. Redundant wireless links. So talking about stuff like PRP, MPO, and just kind of generally like multiple active wireless links for things like safety or high availability wireless projects. And so the voting should be open. This will probably be released a couple days after it opens, but it'll be open until the 14th. We'll put a link in the show notes, and please vote for a talk for me so I can stand in front of a bunch of people nervously.
Only if you wear your bright yellow shirt like you did last time.
Oh, and no, I'm gonna do that, and I'll have a different stuffed animal this time. And
Okay.
then also on there, I was looking at them, and there's going to be a HaLow outdoor site survey deep dive this year. I'm pretty sure I saw that, so that would definitely be worth signing up for. That's probably going to be the one I sign up for, unless my boss makes me sign up for something else. But that one looks really good, and it's prescient, or it's relevant to this podcast. So check it out.
Don't forget to check out our page for our document library for free downloadable content for all you engineers out there. There are milliwatt to dBm conversion tables. We've got some wireless IoT reference charts for types and security, and a fair amount of and growing collection of best practice white papers to help everybody stay on their games. So I want to welcome everyone to episode 21, HaLow, Can You Go? And today with us, like I said, we have Kelly and Andy respectively. Can you guys tell everyone a little bit about yourselves?
I could go first if you want, Andy.
Please do.
So I'm Kelly. I'm the VP of Sales and Business Development at Gateworks. And Gateworks is an embedded board manufacturer, single board computers, industrial single board computers in San Luis Obispo. That's where I am right now. That's where our factory is. And I'm in charge of wireless strategy for Gateworks, along with key customer engagements. And I've got a background in Wi-Fi, but really got into the HaLow market about 5 years ago. So our company sells embedded solutions to OEMs that are making things like gateways and routers and edge compute devices. And now they're enabled to make those gateways and routers HaLow. So pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Nice job. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Scott and Jeremy, for inviting us along to today's session, and looking forward to the conversation. So I'm Andy McFarlane. I'm in Sydney, Australia, very different time zone, very different hemisphere. I'm the VP of marketing for Morse Micro. Morse Micro, for those of you who don't know, is a fabless semiconductor company, right now wholly focused on Wi-Fi HaLow. But at our core, we are focused on wireless solutions for the world of IoT. We're fascinated. We're excited to see what the IoT has become over the last 15 years, but we're even more excited about what it could become and how we can enable some, just some next generation thinking, some different solutions that we'll no doubt get into as today goes on. Wi-Fi HaLow is different. It is a little bit special, but it's still emerging. So we're building out our ecosystem, we're building out our go-to-market, we're building out our capability. Second generation chip is in market, and we're blessed with the opportunity to work with awesome partners like Gateworks.
Well, that's fantastic, and welcome to the show, guys. Real quick before we dive into some nerd stuff, let's do just a quick HaLow primer for those who are not quite familiar with it. HaLow is IEEE 802.11ah. It is Wi-Fi, but it is Wi-Fi moved down to the sub-gigahertz frequency level. Here in the US, we have channels, ISM channels 902 to 928, 900 in the 900 megahertz range. It does vary with a lot of other countries in the world, but it's pretty interesting. We seem to have the most spectrum available for it in the US versus many other countries. And well, at least congruently, as opposed to splitting it up into multiple different frequencies. HaLow does use very narrow channels, anywhere from 1 to 16 megahertz, depending on what you decide you want to run. But with the sub gigahertz, frequency range gives you further distance and actual more signal efficiency when transmitting and receiving, which is great for small battery units and different things like that, low data rates and whatnot. But due to the Wi-Fi modulations that you can use on it, you can actually push a fair amount of data across a HaLow link. You're not going to push, gigabits worth of data across it, but if you need to shoot a mile link through dense trees and still get 20 meg worth of throughput, that's a completely reasonable use case for this technology. It does rely on OFDM, like standard Wi-Fi. However, there are some additional things added to it, like wake timers and whatnot for battery efficiency, that make it a very useful tool in your wireless toolbox. But one of the other really big sticking points about Wi-Fi HaLow in the 900, being in the 900 megahertz space, is the fact that it has access to all of the more advanced security types that are available for Wi-Fi that are not available for other wireless protocols. So especially when you start looking at WPA3 and all the enhanced security measures that come along with WPA3 that just aren't there for proprietary protocols and non-802.11 protocols. So not only do you get that enhanced distance capabilities and that enhanced penetrative capabilities of the frequency, you get that enhanced security that comes along with that. So Jeremy did just remind me that there is a rumor that you can link up 88 HaLow radios and together and push them to 1.21 gigawatts. That I actually read that myself.
It's just a rumor though.
Well, I heard someone's putting together a YouTube video for it. So
Actually,
we'll see how
it's
that
true.
goes.
I think it's true. I've seen that. I've seen that demo.
So, well, I guess you'll have to get a Mr. Fusion to push all that, but
And
I digress.
it has to be in an aluminum enclosure.
Okay. Does it? I'm not going to go any further down that rabbit hole.
Okay, let's get back on topic. I'm sorry.
So I would mention frequencies in the U.S. We're at 902 to 928. It's interesting, Andy, you're in Australia, and Australia, yours is like half of what we've got. You're 915 to 928, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So with that does kind of limit you on some of your channel width options within HaLow, but there's still enough spectrum there to be useful. And then Kelly, we were talking in pregame about how Europe has just a lot of restrictions on the frequency space for HaLow. Have you heard any reasoning behind that, or what's been your experience with that?
Well, I mean, even in Wi-Fi, Europe's had restrictions for a long time with being kind on the network. I'm going to talk pretty high level, listen before talk. They don't want too many people on the network at the same time. They want to have, good user experience. So they've always had a lot of restrictions, even in standard Wi-Fi. As to why the 900 or the sub-gigahertz band is so locked down, I really don't know the answer to that.
There's probably some sort of like government use of the adjacent bands or something that's there. But that's, I mean, even with like private cellular and stuff, like we get kind of the CBRS stuff, but there's, they've dedicated a huge chunk of it in Europe for manufacturing in that band. So it's kind of nice if you can use it, but it's also kind of restrictive for some of those things.
They just need the killer use case, and then they'll probably open it up for us.
Yeah,
that's fair. So not too terribly long ago, I actually picked up a couple of Morse Micro HaLow radios because I wanted to. I really, I got permission from my boss, and we got some lab radios, and I really wanted to see what they looked like in spectrum analysis. And it is absolutely a standard OFDM Wi-Fi signature when you're looking at it in the spectrum analysis. Fortunately, I still have my 900 megahertz adapter for my MetaGeek stuff, and so I was able to get some really good, clear images of that, and I've got those posted in the show notes. So if you guys want to see what HaLow looks like in the spectrum, just go check out the show notes. But really, the whole driving force behind all of this is the use cases, and specifically industrial use cases, right? This is the industrial Wi-Fi shop. I mean, you can use HaLow for a myriad of different things. But really where I see in the future for HaLow to shine is in the industrial space, because there are a lot of use cases just in general for sub-gigahertz frequencies, be it sensors. And actually, that's one of the things that HaLow brings to the table is actually the solid data throughput at that frequency that gives much better penetration values in an industrial environment. So Kelly, what, from the board manufacturer's point of view, what are the primary use cases that you guys are seeing out in the wild and in general, and the types of manufacturing? What kind of verticals are we looking at that this stuff is growing up in?
Well, when I first got into the HaLow market, Scott, I thought it was going to be primarily for agriculture because of the range and because of that outdoor application, and it would be a LoRaWAN replacement, and you could get more bandwidth and you could send more data. But what it's really evolving into now is more industrial. It plays very well in the factory, and factory automation is a focus for Gateworks. Most of our customers are buying our embedded boards with wireless, and they're doing machine health monitoring or conveyor belt operation, or various factory automation systems. And HaLow operates very well in the factory, even in robotics. So I would say factory automation for us is the biggest market, but our biggest customers are also in retail today.
Really?
So HaLow is finding its way into retail, electronic shelf labels, security devices, because of the way that you can have so many different nodes on one AP. It reduces your infrastructure, and then the signal integrity is really good when there's a lot of metal around. So, and it operates just like Wi-Fi. So you've got your Wi-Fi security, you've got your roaming. You can configure it, just like you can configure any other 802.11 device. And so I think the factory and retail are the big ones. We're really hoping because of the AI developments that are going on in the meter market, that it's going to find its way there. Grid monitoring is another big one for us. We've got customers that are, monitoring the health and well-being of the grid, making sure with images and cameras that everything is working correctly, and those images need to be sent a fair distance. And then the robots, we've got the big guys, that are making the mowers and the different things that are going, out in the garden, and those guys love HaLow too. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up like power and power grid monitoring and things of that nature, because I was thinking about that not long ago, and how that's kind of a perfect fit, because typically when you see EMI RFI generated around electrical, it's usually much higher in frequency range. So 2.4 is kind of like, I'm not going to say all the time, but I will say that everywhere I go, the vast majority of interferers in general, be it mechanical or be it EMI RFI created, it's almost always in the 2 to 3 gigahertz range. So that keeps HaLow well outside of that, as far as having to worry about outside interferers messing with data throughput and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys seeing, Andy, and your primary use cases for a lot of the products that you guys are putting out?
Yeah, look, so I fully underline everything that Kelly's described because we're partners, but maybe I'll just kind of double click on two, which she's touched on lightly. Video cameras right up front, without a shadow of a doubt. So video cameras, traditionally for security, but there's kind of about 3 ways in which we see the value of a Wi-Fi enabled video camera compared with the 2.4. So firstly, just distance. Yeah, so most people have domestic video security cameras, and they're great. They're either working off a single AP or off a mesh, and they're good around the house, the physical unit of the house, but they rarely get to the fence of the property. They rarely get to the front, to the front gate beyond the garage. There's a lot of walls, so your perimeter of security isn't actually the perimeter of your property. So Wi-Fi HaLow can, it's much easier to. At the moment, it's cellular or cable connected if you want to, to do full perimeter property. So HaLow offers something material there. That's one space for the cameras. The second one is, quite often you want to put a camera in a place where 2.4 just isn't quite getting to. There's holes in the coverage. It's patchy around about a property, and they're often, critical places, thick walls where security-wise, you really do want a camera. And the third reason why Wi-Fi HaLow fits so well there is that 2.4 is a really busy channel. It's a really, really busy channel. And if you get 1 or 2 cameras at the perimeter of the distance that they can handle, then they're just shouting to the AP all the time, and they're impacting the whole network because they're not getting a strong enough connection. Whereas you can just offload that, put it all on HaLow, and there's a kind of a robust all of the testing work that we do and the deployment says that a kind of a HaLow camera line is way more robust, way more solid, way more reliable in the places that really matter. So video security cameras, and we touched on, or you made reference to AI earlier on, adding AI vision capability to think of cameras as sensors and doing different roles in and around industrial, in and around other places, starts to get really interesting. We offer, as you touched on, we offer a different grade of a different scale of connectivity at distance, which is beautiful. That in its own right, we're IP to the edge, and we just kind of move the edge a whole bit further out there. But if you put a pile of processing and different data inputs at the edge, then you can do some really interesting edge AI computing that enables a different grade of security or a different grade of sensing of multiple different factors together. So that's a really clear space where the competition, or the other options, I should say, are cellular or cable. So the pricing of just putting a Wi-Fi HaLow unit on something makes it a really credible way forward. So with that works real well. Quickly touch on the second, and then we can pause and reflect. Again, Kelly touched on briefly the smart metering, smart grid, smart metering. With the industry talks about advanced meter infrastructure, AMI. But the industry is now talking about AMI 2.0. And in my intro, I kind of had the look back on first generation IoT and the look forward at second generation IoT, which is where we're really excited, because I'm less interested in gas meters and water meters because the game's not changing really for them. They're doing a really solid job, and current tech is going to be good enough for another decade at least. Whereas in electricity, there's way more solar on rooftops. There's way more electric vehicles that are out there. There's way more batteries that are out there on the side of properties. So the historically centralized grid is no longer that. It's everyone knows about a virtual power plant and et cetera, but the point of need for greatest intelligence is at the grid edge. So the industry is talking about advanced meter infrastructure 2.0, and it's talking about a need for grid edge intelligence, and that's basically at the smart meter. It's what's going on behind the meter, from where the meter is into the house, connecting to those big load uses, HVAC, pool pumps, solar panels, batteries, et cetera, and connecting into the line sensing. And let's be honest, quite often those smart meters are not in nice places. They're behind concrete walls. They're in ugly places. They're not in places where it's easy to get a good signal. So cellular absolutely has a role to play, but we're really bullish that Wi-Fi HaLow has a strong role to play in that space as well. And will be part and parcel of the next generation of grid intelligence. So it's a couple of really interesting things, but I do like to think of the use cases of being what's the industry done with that use case until now? And if you had a chunk more bandwidth, a chunk more capability with all of the security and interoperability that you made reference to, what could you do that would just be a whole chunk better going forwards? And that's where we like to spend our time.
So Andy, I think that kind of what you just said too, like the cellular aspect is really interesting and it can be really convenient, but I'm in the sweaty LA on the Gulf Coast, lower Alabama. And just a few years ago, you have a big storm roll through and it knocks out a ton of those towers, and they're down for, they can be down for 2 weeks. The coverage never really kind of, we're several years after and it hasn't really fully recovered. And so something like this, if your infrastructure's damaged, you can put it back up pretty quickly. So that's kind of competitive too, and then you kind of conjoin that with having the advanced, the latest in security too, that's available because it is a Wi-Fi standard, or it's an 802.11 standard. I think that it's, it's very appetizing.
To kind of take that a step further, if I could, when you look at it, it actually could be especially in the industrial space, it can be a direct competitor for cellular, because you can pull out that third party that is integrated in there that you have to trust, that you have to pay to trust, and you don't know what's going on behind those scenes, right? So, I mean, granted, you're paying them a lot of money for this service, so they better be secure and they better have their act together. But there's always that nagging doubt, right? Because you're having to rely on a third party that is out of your control to make sure that data gets there. When, if you're looking at, a mile or a couple kilometers or whatever, instead of using a cellular link, you could then install a Halo link, and get the exact same thing, save a metric crap ton of money at the same time, and then completely eliminate that third party question and or risk. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I've been in and around the tech sector in a range of guises for best part, well, actually over 30 years. And the inevitable journey from proprietary to open systems and open standards is just frankly the right answer, however you play it out. And I started out my career at IBM, and they were real big on proprietary, and they loved them for all kinds of reasons. But you know what? Open systems, everyone lining up in a consistent way. Cybersecurity is a team sport, however you play it out. You can't handle it on your own. So no finer way than really genuinely setting yourself up with the best confidence you can have if you're not aligned to key standards like WPA3 going forward. So that open systems play, that open source software play is a really important part of how we're investing our time and effort.
Kelly, can you tell us a little bit more about the partnership that Gateworks and Morse Micro have in general, and what that means for the end user?
Sure. Well, Morse Micro is a chip manufacturer. They're making 802.11ah chips, and Gateworks is an embedded building block board manufacturer and wireless module manufacturer. So Gateworks basically is selling to OEMs that are making industrial products that want to make their product wireless. And some of them want to make, and more lately, want to make their product HaLow enabled. So the relationship with Morse Micro is that we're using their radio on a module that plugs into our Linux-based embedded board and then we validate the drivers and the software and the bring up, and we give the instructions and the framework to an embedded Linux designer that's designing a product, and he has basically a quick start, so he can get to market faster. Not too many people are going to do chip designs anymore, so having something that's certified already, and having basically a plug and play solution for an embedded system that gives you a HaLow link.
So you guys are almost kind of creating really, because HaLow is still in the grand scheme of things in its infancy. When you look at it as far as growth and technology, you guys are kind of setting the standard then, for what people's expectations should be, out of one of these devices. Would that be a fair statement?
I don't know if you say setting the standard, but
Not necessarily an official standard, but of what somebody should expect out of a
we're showing them how to get it done. We could probably say it that way. We're giving them the building blocks. Here you go. You could start on your own, and it might take you years to get to market, or you can take your driver validated from Gateworks and your board that's already been designed and validated, and you've got your whole system, and then you can customize it from there. So it's really just a shortcut to an edge compute device that's running wireless.
All right, so it's more or less kind of speeding up the process of the maturity level of HaLow then.
Yes. Yeah. Getting it and getting the building environment to the OEMs, to the industrial designers, and giving them a head start.
Can I just build on something Kelly mentioned there? Because it's, I don't know exactly when your listeners will be listening to this podcast, but there's a fair chance that a number of them will be listening to it on the way to Embedded World. North America in Anaheim. Now, if you're listening to this podcast on the way back from Anaheim, then you've missed the opportunity. But Kelly and the Gateworks team and members of the Morse Micro team and buddies from U-Blox are together in Anaheim talking about exactly this with the autonomous mobile robots, the AMR example that Kelly brought out. It's a concept that's been spoken about and written about extensively for many, many years. In the future, robots will, but I rather like how you were saying it, Scott, because we're there now. The technology's proven, so now let's get cracking. And one of the things that I love about the way the Gateworks model, the go-to-market model, is the speed of solution development. And fast development and then putting things into market and testing and learning, I think, is building on the IoT first generation to second generation. People know an awful lot more now as a result of the last 10, 15 years worth of experiences. So try new things to raise the bar, using the extra bandwidth in a better way, using the compute that's available now for edge AI solutions, be them robots or whatever. I think working with partners like Gateworks and others on fast new solution thinking is a great way forward. And there's teams of people at Embedded World that in Anaheim that can walk through ways in which that partnership can happen.
From an integrator standpoint, because we're a controls integrator and solutions integrator, it's nice to finally see all of these products rolling out for actual use out in the field and solving problems. Because HaLow was approved by IEEE a long time ago, and it has been talked about ad nauseum. And it was so hard to find any sort of gear that had it out and running, up and running, that wasn't somebody's homemade device in a garage that they're trying to sell on eBay. It's having quality equipment that's out there and ready to solve problems. That's a really big deal. And so I think we're really only at the beginning of everything that HaLow is going to be able to accomplish, and just in the grand scheme of things, as far as solving problems.
Yeah, look, it's a really fair comment. I can't talk to other manufacturers and their choices to invest or not, but Morse Micro was founded around Wi-Fi HaLow. I mean, our two co-founders, Michael Daniil and Andy Terry, they're electrical engineers who were working for Broadcom, saw the standard come out and went, right, this is our chance. They'd been designing chips that were Wi-Fi chips, which were applied into IoT solutions, not built for IoT solutions, and compromised on a power utilization, compromised on a connectivity, compromised in a range of ways. And they saw Wi-Fi HaLow standard coming through and went, right, this is a chance. Let's go and park the general part of Wi-Fi and focus real hard on this. Now, I'm sure everyone on the podcast will appreciate that from having an idea and going to the pub and chatting to your wife and saying, how about having no income for the next couple of years while we set up a semiconductor business? It's not easy to put a chip in market. So 8 years on, we've now got our second generation chip in mass production. And inevitably, your second generation just gives you a whole pile more confidence than your first generation.
Absolutely.
So now is the right time to do exactly what you say, which is to take a fast maturing and growing portfolio, but one that is still nascent, and build it out, because who knows what the next 5 or 10 years will be. But you and I know that over the next 5 or 10 years, people will be looking for software, will be super, super smart, and they'll be looking for the ability to simply carry volumes of traffic on IP to the edge. And that's at its core, that's what HaLow does.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to kind of the icing on the cake, and Kelly, please correct me if I'm wrong. All of these boards that you guys are producing, this is all made in the United States, right?
We make everything in San Luis Obispo, California. The modules too. Yeah.
That's also a pretty big deal, because, I'm not going to name any places, but when you look at boards that are made in specific countries, it calls into question, what's actually on those boards, as far as
It's a security risk.
any
Yeah.
security measures, right? So supply chain attacks are a real thing. That is a real threat and risk. So the proud American, seeing that stamp on something like this, does give a reassurance that that's something you don't have to be concerned about in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. Gateworks has been selling to the DoD long before we did a HaLow product, by the way. We're an ITAR facility. So we're not just made in America. We're ITAR classified. We sell to all the major defense contractors. There's all sorts of new non-China standards coming out. And we have the ability to comply with those standards because of the way the company operates. So we have our own ERP system that was developed in-house, and we can trace country of origin on every single component that we buy and put on our boards. And if you want a complete non-China bill of material, good luck. But good luck. It's possible. So the hard part comes where, some of the semiconductors are packaged. That's a little bit rare, but difficult to do. But yeah, we can do complete non-China. We are completely made in America and have been for 28 years.
That's to me, that's pretty impressive, just in the grand scheme of things. So
it talks to your point on confidence, doesn't it? That kind of fast solution. And you don't need to hesitate on I wonder. And the procurement team that have a need to know for all kinds of really fair, and the IT team that have a really fair reason to know, you can just be confident and step forward.
Well, I mean, when you look now at what a target industry manufacturer has become over the past 10 years, for bad actors in general, be it independent groups or state sponsored entities, right? Big part of my job is cybersecurity for industrial manufacturing centers, right? So I constantly have to be thinking about what is my risk level for whatever it is that I'm working on, be it a network, an OT network redesign, be it an OT wireless deployment, be it for general Wi-Fi, be it for, specialty controls. What are my risk factors? And so I immediately rule out any equipment that has any sort of associated risks in that way, because I have to be able to present this to my customer as a secure solution. And, if I can't verify country of, origin of parts and or software, then that kind of takes it out of the ballpark for me. We have, as an industrial integrator, we have our own, certifications and standards that we have to follow. And I'm not going to be the guy who violates that. So when you're able to have that, it's not necessarily a bill of ladling or whatever. It's just that here we go. That pedigree, right? You have that pedigree, you know where all your parts are from. And you don't have to worry about any sort of supply chain vulnerabilities in that. That's a really big deal. And then the end customer, when they're going through their insurance audits for their cybersecurity insurance, they already have all this stuff documented, and they just can give it to them. And that's going to help not only keep them more secure, but on the financial side, it's going to lower their rates, which is always a bonus because, that's a controllable expense.
Totally agree.
And that's my lecture for the day.
Not only that, so you got the made in America, for HaLow, you've got made in America, you've got, country of origin, traceability, you've got, then you have WPA3 today, but, HaLow is Wi-Fi. So it's going to follow the security measures that Wi-Fi Alliance, develops for the industry. So, HaLow is secure today with WPA3. But what is it going to be tomorrow or 5 years from now? And we'll follow Wi-Fi Alliance, and
with the advancements and encryption always moving. A big deal in WPA3, at least from my point of view, was management frame protection became mandatory, and that's a huge thing, because that one mechanism eliminates 3 of your most common vulnerabilities in Wi-Fi right there. And once you make that mandatory, that's a huge step before encryption, even becomes in the mix for your data transport. So that's a really big deal. And the fact that you can now integrate that into a longer distance 900 megahertz transmission, that's pretty impressive.
Now, I'm not a software engineer, but my understanding is that WPA3 is a layer that has to go into the Linux development for the driver. So just because you have a HaLow module doesn't necessarily mean that you've got a WPA3 secure system. So it takes some development to make sure that that is built into your Linux subsystem, and that's what our Linux engineers do at Gateworks.
I did learn something new every day. I had no idea.
Yeah, that is good to know. Well, I definitely, from even talking about this, I mean, a use case, I mean, this is probably not like a super complicated use case, but I definitely think like, especially in some of the manufacturing plants, I'm really excited for the possibility of, being able to put in some of these tablets that are around there that have USB ports and stuff like that, being able to add in, one of those modules, and then kind of offloading from the regular production wireless network, the ability for somebody to have that mobile HMI or like, controller. There's just so much stuff that you can do with it. And it's kind of funny because it's like, I started out here and 900 megahertz is just dirty. And as that, a lot of that stuff kind of phases out from the frequency hopping stuff, and then you actually get into, something HaLow that has to behave in the way a Wi-Fi device does. I think it's going to make a big resurgence. And I think, we're like, with our customers, we're like, please offload everything you can into 6 gigahertz now, and like give us the 5. But I mean, it's nice where it's like you can grab spectrum for stuff, and really like you get this whole new lever to pull on on available frequency, and you can know like, hey, it's not just some like weird protocol somebody that knows what they're doing can like sniff and easily like read your important information.
So for those who are listening who are not necessarily familiar what an HMI is, an HMI is a human machine interface. Typically, it's a touch screen, and it's used to operate machinery. A lot of time, the vast majority of the time, they're hardwired to a controls cabinet. Sometimes they can be an individual workstation because it's just software running on a workstation. However, wireless HMIs are gaining traction in many different industries so that they can be moved about. A lot of the HMI software has been made, has had mobile versions made. So when you think about that long term, I think this is a realistic, solid use case for HaLow, is being able to put HMIs out in remote areas to where you don't have to run cabling of any sort. You don't have to go through the expense of running fiber. You don't have to go through the expense of running copper. You don't have to do the expense of multiple hops on standard Wi-Fi and then having to troubleshoot all of that. You can, if your wastewater treatment station is a mile away, but you need to have an HMI there and other controls there, and you need to have reliable backhaul that's more than what LoRaWAN can provide, because that's very low data rate, serial data capabilities, right? You need to be able to push 5, 10 meg. You know what? You want to put a security camera there at the same time. You can share that same backhaul in 900 meg and get that reliability connectivity, that reliable connectivity that you need to support all that. And even then within a plant, if you need an HMI in an unusual location that's hard to get to by any other means, then HaLow is the perfect fit for that, because the penetrative values of 900 megahertz is insane. It can push through just about anything, and still maintain, if you're using the wider channels, 20, 25 meg worth of throughput. You can do a lot on 20, 25 meg worth of throughput. I mean, Christ, I remember the days when a great internet connection at your house was 1.54 meg, because I had DSL, and I was.
We're all of an age. We all remember those days, Scott.
Oh man, and just crushing it with my DSL. It was amazing because I finally had gotten off dial-up. But
well, that
remember the days when there was no internet. So.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, even kind of, in the open standards kind of thing too, like, talking about dial-up and stuff back there. Like one of my first jobs was working at a camera shop, and I remember, Sony had the proprietary memory stick, and it's like, well, every other camera takes this, compact flash and stuff like that. And it's, it just really was like, you tell customers like you're going to, whatever you buy, you're going to be stuck in this ecosystem, and it's, you're trapped there, or you got to reinvest. And I think, kind of another thing, like what you're just saying about like the HMIs out there, that's, one of the things that Andy was saying is it's not necessarily like, hey, it's got to be this like AI smart sensor box thing that's out here, right? But you can have an IPC out at that cabinet that can do, light duty tasks, and you might be able to start something way back over there because, we all know about the 10-minute golf cart trip to get out to the, to this one place on the edge. And then it's like, oh crap, I forgot to do XYZ back up there. I've got to run and do that. It's even just simple time saving stuff like that, being able to have a little bit of power out in those locations for other features. And even then still, that's, back to the cellular point, if the cell towers get knocked down or something out there and you have that remote location, it might be a situation where, this might be a part of the redundant wireless links talk, now that I'm thinking about it. But, you could have like a dual link where you have a PRP backhaul, and then you also have cellular, so you can run kind of either way. I mean, there's just so much stuff that is opening up, and you could be really creative. And, just like the maintenance guys that wire a buzz alarm for a prox sensor so they can watch videos on their phone way back in the back of the plant, and they know when somebody's coming by to check on them.
I think AI is going to really drive a lot of use cases in the machine health monitoring market as well. I mean, we've got customers out there that are monitoring these big machines, and they're using non-HaLow technology today, but they're developing more algorithms and AI to really understand and preemptive maintenance on these machines. And with those algorithms, there's more data.
And it's
you're not going to be able to send it on Zigbee. So
and you're not going to need a $10,000 radio on the machine and then somewhere else to do it. The hardware is affordable.
Yeah, and if you're not using something that's control specific, if you're using it for sensors, then when you look at your classic wireless industrial protocols like Wireless HART and ISA 100, those are 2.4 technologies, right? And so they're going to have all those limitations and vulnerabilities that 2.4 has in general in that user space that 900 megahertz just doesn't have. So that's a pretty big deal too. So I mean, it really, I'm a self-professed 900 megahertz junkie, so I've felt this way for years, that it just hasn't been used to its fullest potential. And over the past 10 years, a lot of sensors and different things of that nature are starting to move in that direction. Banner Engineering has a really great suite of 900 megahertz wireless IO and different sensor packages that work in that. But again, that is all very low data rate. It's all spread spectrum stuff. It's not anything that can handle a serious data load, so it's there's plenty of room for coexistence in that space. When you look at the different needs for whatever your endpoint IoT solution needs to accomplish, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One of the things I reflect on is it's your point on the kind of the immaturity or the speed of evolution of the HaLow market. So love the passion on 900 megahertz, but if there hasn't been enough of a portfolio of devices or stations or ecosystem, then the brilliant creativity and innovation that comes from listeners of this podcast and people in this world is they just know, right, well, the glass ceiling is here. How can I deliver a better solution? But the glass ceiling is here. And really, we just say, no, the ceiling's in a really different place. Don't feel limited and change your creativity, change your innovation, because you've got a really different size pipe that you can work with now. By the way, it's IP to the edge. It's way more secure. Think differently. And it's that first generation and second generation piece that I'll come to. It's a real opportunity for creativity and innovation to open up in some materially different ways, which I find that really exciting.
Then you take some of these guys, some buddies of ours like Mark Houts, out there in the Midwest, they'll get all this gear and they will load up and they will go out in the desert and they will just power everything to the max, and they will push and push to see what they can squeeze out of these technologies. It's really interesting what some of these guys, well, what they have
Well,
the time to
he's
do,
got the salt
but
flats right by him too. So
right. So that's a pretty big deal. So, but he's able to test so much out there, and he's super passionate about that. So it's cool seeing, what your peers end up doing when they're able to grab this equipment and go test and roll with it. And then, like Mark does, he then writes it up and puts it out there for whoever to see and read and take a look at. And so then that just spins off more and more ideas. So it's that whole sharing of knowledge is a beautiful thing.
well, I
It
think
does,
what
but I've got to tell you, I get both excited and scared by those kinds of initiatives because our engineers went off into the one of the deserts in the US, and they did a phenomenal job of getting a connection across 16 kilometers.
Wow.
Truly outstanding. So just awesome, awesome, awesome. And I'm the marketing guy, and so people hear 16 kilometers and their eyebrows raise and they hang on to that. And then we launch our new chip, which is a global skew, and we say we've got a PHY throughput of 43 megabits per second, and people go, "Wow, that's awesome." And then people go to the theoretical, logical total number of devices or stations you can put on this standard, and it's 8,191. And people that don't actually understand then draw those three things together and go, "You mean you can deliver for me 43 megabits per second across 8,000 devices at 16 kilometers? Not a hope. Categorically, not a hope in hell. Not no way in the world."
and
Sorry.
then,
Nor
and then
all
No,
three of
but
those
that's what the
companies.
marketing guys run with.
yeah,
Stamp
then
on the
when you get
Well,
the
code.
sales guy.
this is what does my head in because I'm the marketing guy and I go, "Stop doing that. That's a science experiment. That's real." I love the fact we're testing and I love the fact that we're developing, but let's not then push it out there and say this is standard. And that's why that rate versus range graph that you and I exchanged last week on our last discussion is so important to me because it says up to a kilometer. Expect this. This is what you should be getting up to a kilometer. Yeah, crack on and try new things and stretch it. We'll keep it stretching the technology, but the zone to move forward with real confidence is in that, hundreds of meters.
So,
Yeah,
to that point, and I got this in the show notes, the theoretical maximum is 80 megabits, but that's, using 256 QAM and 4 spatial streams. And yeah, I imagine that's like in an open space when you're only 30 feet away from each other, if you're going to
Yeah,
achieve that, and at the
yeah.
same time, if you look at the spec end on that, you're probably destroying not only your unlicensed channels, but everything else around it, because you've got it
Yeah.
completely maxed out. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I love those. I love those extreme points because it tells you what's potential, what's possible. But also, you got to rein it back to okay. So you can have this. Then you pick it. Then you sit down. You talk to Kelly and you say, right. So can we design one of these for me, please? Well, let's bring it into what we're actually going to deliver in a warehouse or in a manufacturing site to deliver what output.
well, Kelly, it sounds like what Andy is saying is that we need to load our test equipment in the Wonkavator and just smash through the ceiling, right?
Well, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So but manage your expectations and just realize that it can do what it can do, and you can probably do creative things with it. But
It's gonna go a lot further. It's
but
just
the
gonna
but the
go a lot
sales guys,
further and
but
still being smart. That's
Yeah,
that's my take on it. You can go further and you can still send some decent amount of data to do
yeah.
real applications.
Yeah, I mean the
but
zone.
that
Just to maybe I'll spin it a slightly different way. The zone I'm really comfortable with when I talk to our business development team, and we're talking to clients and looking at situations, hundreds of devices. Yeah, I'm comfortable. 8,191, not so much. Hundreds of devices. Yeah, we've got a test facility with 2,000 cracking on. That's great, but hundreds of, and that in its own right is super super impressive. 43 megabits per second PHY rate. Yeah, I'm good with that. But the actual UDP throughput workable rate will be lower than that, and that'll be environmental specific. But think of it this way: think of it as 1,000 times what you can get with LoRaWAN. And if you put your head into that, then it's it's not about the numbers. It's What am I getting with a tiny packet of data on prior generation thinking? Smash the glass ceiling, multiply that by 1,000. You can do some very different things. So it's still a really, really exciting zone, and I can feel good about that without sweating.
But the box says, Andy, the box says that I can get 43 megabit with 8,000 clients. That's what the
43.3.
box says.
Yeah,
Don't make us do the Tommy Boy
I might get
quote.
my pen out.
Well, so Andy, this might be a good, obviously this is, if you're watching the video right now, no, this might be a good time to maybe just kind of discuss that slide that you have, maybe a little bit more. And, what can you, if you're saying, 100 meters, what's realistic to expect? And then, kind of maybe are there like chunks where it's like, hey, this is kind of like just and I know you said don't get in the like maybe in the zeros and ones of it, but just from a high level, what can you expect at kind of what range?
Yeah, beautiful. So hopefully on the video we'll be able to show put a chart in front of you now, which is a pretty simple, deliberately written without logarithmic scales, rate versus range chart. And this is because the engineers love them dearly, always write these as logarithmic scales, and you miss the clarity, I feel, of the real zone that gets exciting for Wi-Fi HaLow. So we've just written up or drawn up a really simple graph that takes us to a kilometer. And it compares Wi-Fi HaLow expected throughput in standard conditions, whatever standard are, but in incredible normal conditions. And it talks about 43 megabits of PHY throughput for the first 100 meters or so. That'll drop, but if you're at 300 or 400 meters, then you're still getting 20 meg throughput. At 500 or 600 meters, you should be getting 10 megabits. And when you get through to the multiple hundreds of meters towards a kilometer, you're still in megabit range. So you're in 2, 3, 4, 5 megabits range. And those are on the chart which we're seeing. Sometimes people look at the blue, at the axis, the horizontal axis at the bottom, and say, oh, that's blue. Well, that's not, with respect, because LoRaWAN has been absolutely phenomenal over the last 20 years to create the Internet of Things. But that's the throughput of LoRa. Is the horizontal line at the bottom. The throughput of 2.4 gig is the orange line on the left-hand side. So LoRa will go way further than Wi-Fi HaLow. That's the right choice if that's your use case. If you want really, really high throughput, stick with 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, but you won't get distance. If you want, decent, credible throughput at really short distance at super low cost, then go Bluetooth, no question. That's a little red blob in the bottom left-hand corner. But there's a lot on this chart, which is purple, which is where IoT2, new solutions, different glass ceiling can be brought to life really credibly. And, to my earlier point on using the creativity and innovation of your audience, if anyone wants to take a screen grab of this, stick it out on their LinkedIn socials and just ask their customers, what would they do with this kind of throughput capability at this kind of distance? If they tag me and they tag Morse Micro on that, then I'll know who they are. I'd love to learn with them, but I'll also really happily send over a couple of HaLow Link 1 devices to anyone who does that. So they'll be getting customer feedback on what their customers might be interested in, and I'll give them a couple of boxes to just go test in their normal environments what kind of throughput they get, because we can learn together on this journey.
And Andy, I do want to just toss in there, I was joking about the video part of that because I have a face for radio, but it will be posted in the show notes, so you can pull that, and I'm sure it's probably perfectly acceptable to do that. Pull it from the show notes and then put a post and then tag Andy and Morse Micro, and really, tag me in it too, because I'd love to see what people are thinking.
Yeah, just tag the show along with Kelly and Andy in it, and let's see where this goes.
And Andy, did you notice I wore my purple shirt today?
I'm loving it. For this. I'm sitting an inch taller just directly as a result of your wardrobe choice.
Well, I think we just got new shirts at work, and everybody picks like blue and gray and white. And I'm like, man, I want like a nice, like a nice color. And
Looking
so
sharp there, Jeremy.
thanks.
Yeah, if he were in
We all
Star
know
Wars,
how
he'd
you
be
just
Mace
said the
Windu
bit.
with the purple lightsaber.
It's the only one. Never mind. I can't say that. It's the only one that's got on it.
Right.
Anyway. No, but that's thank you very much for that explanation, kind of that side, because and maybe does this kind of have an indication of like, what kind of device level are you able, I mean, obviously, right, is that like aggregate throughut and then,
That's
all the
aggregate
devices?
throughput.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you're
exactly.
slicing that amongst devices.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to
But
make sure that your denominator is not 8,191.
the sales guy, Steve, we got to talk to him.
So you know what, Andy, I'm going to get with you after the show, and I kind of want to put together a white paper with this graphic, and the explanation breakdown, and get that posted on our document page, because I think that should be out there available for everybody to grab, just in general, so that they can have a realistic expectation of what
Yeah.
they can leverage HaLow for, and what
Yeah.
they can do
Yeah.
with it. So that way, we're already trying to head off the pass what some of the guys are going to try to stamp on the box, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh no, that's perfect. Genuine. I'd love that because it's too easy to quickly say, look what you can do. You throw out a couple of big numbers. But to my earlier point on creativity and innovation and breaking that glass ceiling, I think people need to just kind of pause and think and go, well, what's my industrial solution actually trying to do? We're at 200 or 300 meters. Man, look how much more I can get. This or cellular are your choices. Well, cellular for these reasons won't work, or will, and it'll be great, but I'll be paying every month for it. And there's a step back, pause, brainstorming. I'm thinking differently now than I have for the last 10 years, which I think this kind of graphic and a healthy nudge by you and your team would be really useful.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's interesting, especially Kelly. This is my first time meeting somebody who actually is behind the scenes on things like this, actually building the embedded boards and whatnot. So this is all has been very educational for me on top of all that, and I want to make sure that we include everybody in on this as much as possible.
Yeah, I think if there's some interesting Gateworks products or any of that kind of information, I think that'd be really nice to put that in the show notes too. So that way,
Sure.
it's easy for people to kind of look at this and say, hey, this might fit what I'm looking for.
Well, we have
I'll
a
put
really
put a
nice
stars and
wiki.
stripes flag in there.
Oh, go
Sorry, I was
ahead.
just saying, put a stars and stripes flag in the show notes as well, if you will, just to remind everyone.
I was going to say we've got a Wi-Fi HaLow development kit. It really is an embedded development
Oh,
kit, though. It's a Linux computer with an Ubuntu BSP running a Morse Micro radio, and so you can start development on a product that way. It is just basically get a get started kit. Develop your own HaLow product that way.
Well, I'm definitely gonna forward that to our embedded team because they.
I'll get you one, Jeremy. You reach
Okay.
out to me. I'll get you one. Now, remember, it's just one side. You got to make HaLow on the other side too. So
Well, I've got some HaLow links, so.
perfect.
yeah.
I had an interesting application come across my desk today that I wanted to share because Andy's talking about new ideas and forget about the ceiling. And we had a customer call in a couple weeks ago. He's doing a drone development. Now we've been selling into the drone market for a long time, and our drone customers were using SDRs primarily for their wireless link. And we had a customer call in, and I sent an email to him today because I was hoping to interview him before the show, but all I got was the email back. It just happened a little bit ago. And I said, what the heck? What the heck are you doing HaLow with the drone? And he said, I'm utilizing HaLow as a data link solution to support real-time telemetry and video streaming at ranges up to 5 kilometers. In addition to mobile ad hoc networking, I'm also doing mesh. Pretty fun.
Yeah, that actually, I asked somebody, I was asking some of my HaLow junkie friends, what they thought maybe some interesting questions. And that was one of the things they were talking about is like meshing. So that's pretty cool. And, you think about like the, the glass ceiling, but it's also like there's so much ground level stuff too that it's, it's like you can really like breathe some life back into some things, or even just amplify the capabilities of existing stuff. So they're sending telemetry and video back from a drone. I mean, that's
all I know, guys.
yeah. Yeah. No,
My first thought was, what are you doing? What are you doing with HaLow? And I wasn't really paying attention to the drone market until probably about a year ago, and all of a sudden it just started exploding.
well,
So
I bought I got a little bitty, beginner drone, and then I didn't. I had the instructions in the dark, and I was trying to fly it, and I turned the remote off and turned it back on, and it homed, and I thought it was going to hit a branch, and then it flew straight into me, and I got all the propeller blades like gouged into my chest, and I haven't tried it since. I was like, all right, I'm lucky I still have my eyes.
yeah, well, that market is really growing, and so if people want to test out HaLow in a drone, we'll probably get some hands-on experience here and supporting this customer, so we'll know how to support
Awesome.
you.
So, I kind of want to end this segment on the fact that I'm becoming a bit of an AI research junkie. And so I was digging into a couple different AI engines, Perplexity and Chat and whatnot, and just looking for in general industrial information on HaLow and whatnot. But what struck me is Morse Micro and Gateworks continuously come up towards the top of these lists. So whether you guys realize it or not, your info is getting out there. And a lot of the research that I have done over the past several weeks, actually, before I even started talking to you guys about being on the show, I go and I'm researching, I'm looking up information just on HaLow in general, and gosh knows it pulls so much from the Morse Micro site for when it's sitting there giving you your site sources and whatnot. So you guys are doing a really good job at getting that info out there, whether you realize it or not,
I think
because all the
ChatGPT is the best thing that ever happened to us.
well, all these crawlers and information hoarders are picking up on it, and so when you're
Yeah.
asking those questions, it's not having to go very far to find it.
But
Yeah.
do just keep in mind that on occasion, the AI stuff can hallucinate. So it might tell you you're going to get 8,000 devices way out.
That's
At 43 megabits at 16 kilometers, correct. Well, I got to tell you guys, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come on the show. Andy, you're all the way out in Australia, and Kelly, you're in the opposite side of the country from me. I'm in North Carolina, you're in California. Jeremy's in LA, somewhere there in the lower southeast.
I mean, I'm 2 miles from Greenbow.
Greenbow, Alabama. I appreciate you guys coming on. This has been a lot of fun. We need to get that link for that development kit that you guys have. I want to put that in the show notes.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I definitely want to make sure we get that out there.
I promise one for Jeremy.
And I hope we can revisit this topic relatively soon, because this has been fascinating and a learning experience for me.
Pleasure to be
Oh,
here.
look, thank you. Yeah, thank you. But all of you, I really enjoyed the conversation. Just an extra thought as it pops into my head. You made reference to the website, and I love the way you did that. Thank you. There's also a community that we're building. So community.morsemicro.com is an opportunity. There's at the moment, there's about 400 or so different people from around the world who are active with Wi-Fi HaLow, who are just, asking. It's Q&A between buddies. Arian on my team runs that. He does a cracking job. There's a number of people who pitch in, but it might be another opportunity for your listeners to engage with this kind of dialogue. And if they don't want to, buy any kits, they just get a sense of what's in there and what's possible and what's not. And maybe Arian and the team and might be involved in a future conversation on our open source software and what we're doing on Zephyr and how those different platforms are evolving quickly to take advantage of new solutions.
And Andy, I will say, I've been on there. I haven't done a ton of HaLow testing myself because it's, the life of a systems integrator, it's you think you're going to be doing quotes, and then you get support calls, and then you have to go do mummified apples with your daughter. You don't have to. That was actually fun. But being in there, I mean, really, like, if you're listening to this and you've seen any of the posts that are out of WLPC last year, a number of people got some of the HaLow link stuff to test, and several of those people went on to start saying, hey, how can we do like site surveys with this? How can we do XYZ with this? And I mean, from here's the list of commands that you can run to check this. Hey, here's a way to, tweak this. Let me check this, that, Arian, he was real good with providing information. There's people that are like super GNSS GPS nerds in there. I mean, it really is like a good group of people that are in there, and you can get a lot of information from them. And, like Scott kind of said towards the beginning, or maybe it was before when we were talking about it, the Wi-Fi community in general is really pretty nice, but I think the OT people feel like they're kind of in an island sometimes. And so I feel like we're really open with helping people. So that is probably one of the better resources if you're looking to do anything with HaLow. And you said that was what was the site for that again? Just
so community.morsemicro.com.
Okay, perfect. And we'll have that in the show notes, but that's an awesome place to go get some information and ask questions and post pictures of your nerd kit that you made.
Exactly that.
And Embedded World in Annaheim, if you're in California, November 4th through 6th, both Morse Micro and Gateworks will be there. And we'll have a fireside chat with U-Blox to discuss our AMR Autonomous Mobile Robot development that we're doing together.
I'm gonna be following up on that.
It's right next to Disneyland. You should bring your daughter, Jeremy. So
yeah,
I'm sure she wants to go to Disneyland.
I've only been in, I've been in the parks for work.
You're sick of it.
No, I'm not sick of it. I haven't been enough for that, but
you always swear by that Mexican joint that's right outside
there's that one's near Universal Poquito Mas.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about the one.
And there's a really good Thai place
that's what it was. The Thai place.
Well, the Thai place is the one that in the bathroom has a golf ball for the sink handle that's on there, and it's like, this is going to be good. But anyway, the AMR thing is, I think that's super interesting, and I've actually got a note for one of our customers that's really always looking to do testing and stuff. And
we're developing a support page on it. So once that's up and running on our support wiki, we'll share it with you, and it'll have all the how-tos and get up and running.
And Kelly, I don't know, I don't want to like drag this on too long, but I don't know if you've ever really looked at like just the wireless environment in some, maybe some like auto manufacturing or things like that. But there's some customers are trying to unify it and say, okay, we're going to provide a WLAN infrastructure and everybody's got to ride on this. And some of them, they're like, hey, this AGV, this AMR, this EMS, like we're an isolated system. And so you get system on top of system on top of system. And, sometimes people think that, just because you have signal somewhere, that means it's just going to work. But then there's also airtime to contend with. And so, they'll try to push you in places that maybe aren't necessarily the most efficient, but
roaming and all that, it gets pretty complicated.
But to be able to like go in and just say, hey, we don't need, we don't need 2 or 3 of your 5 gigahertz channels, or we don't want to try and do this on 2.4. We can just put, 1 or 2 APs in here and run off of that. I think that would be, I think that'd be really killer, because, just in general, it's like the little blurb on every one of our quotes and reports, right? Is that for AGV work, we're really sensitive to layer 2 retransmission and latency. We have, we're like voice grade wireless, but we don't need a lot of throughput. We're sub 1 meg most of the time. So it's like, this would be, if we could get this going for some customers, this would be incredibly useful, I think. So so the embedded world, is that right? Did I say it right?
Embedded World, Annaheim.
Okay. Anaheim.
California.
Yeah, I'm gonna be looking into that this weekend. Well, I'm gonna be looking into it next weekend.
You'll miss it.
I gotta go to the K-pop Demon Hunters sing along thing this weekend with my daughter, so there's no travel for me.
We'll be definitely posting lots of stuff about it, so you
Awesome.
can take a look at our LinkedIn page, and we'll let you know when all the sports stuff is up, so you can look at all the weeds, down into the weeds of the Linux development and what you need.
Excellent. And maybe Scott, we can weasel some of the driver developers to kind of talk about some of that stuff at some point in time too, if they can, obviously, right? Like, the secret, the herbs and spices are secret for a reason.
That's true. We don't want to openly support corporate espionage now, would we?
No, not at all.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Hey, everybody out there. Have a great day. And look into some HaLow. It's fun. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we hope you join us on our next episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop.